trouble when he talks about the virus. Chief of staff wants him focusing on other things, just like the economy. Let others talk about the virus. But at the end of the day, of course, the deciding vote lies with the president. And as we reported, he has spent weeks now talking about how much he misses those briefings, in particular the ratings, the time slot, sort of late in the day. He felt like it gave him an opportunity to really command the nation's attention, which he frankly can't do right now without a rally. He can't. He's lost his favorite campaign tool, and as he faces these rather significant deficits in the polls, he feels like he needs to draw that attention again. So we're back. The rallies are on. The briefings are on, at least for the time being.
If they are going to turn out to be briefings. And meanwhile, Eugene, all this is going on as the president is backing the use of these unidentified armed federal agents. Again, they seem to be without training to handle protests. They're most notably in Portland, but now there's a threat that they will be deployed to Chicago, to Philadelphia, to Detroit, to other big city Democratic-led mayors. As the president points out, this does seem to be another campaign tactic to divert from the pandemic and that crisis and to focus on what they call law and order. Last night, Joy Reid, in her debut show, which had, of course, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Mayor Bottoms, and Mayor Lightfoot from Chicago. And the mayor spoke to Joy about this. Let me play this for you.
Our democracy is at stake, and I'll be darned if I'm going to let anybody, even if their name is Mr. President, bring those kind of troops to our city and try to take off our residents. That's not going to happen in Chicago.
And she's a former prosecutor and points out that prosecutors and local police and mayors need to be, consulted when troops are brought in, federal troops of any kind. But right now in Oregon, they're suing, and so far they have not been able to prevent this from happening.
Yeah, this seems to be a fight that President Trump wants to have with an eye toward his reelection campaign. Law and order is his big theme, and so I think he wants, he thinks he'd rather have people arguing about that than arguing about his performance on the coronavirus. But this whole thing is a total jumble. So I see this briefing today as a real gamble by the White House. For one thing, obviously he's going to be asked, if it's just the president, he's going to be asked about these unprecedented law and order tactics that he's taking with the unmarked goons in Portland and threatening to do it in other cities. So he's going to have to talk about that, and maybe that's what he wants. But if he is capable of convincing Americans that he is taking an effective and compassionate and empathetic approach to the coronavirus, he hasn't done it yet. And in fact, when he has tried, he watched as he did those daily briefings in March and April, he watched his poll numbers slide rather precipitously. He started at like 51%, thought he was doing a good job handling the coronavirus, and it's down in the 30s now. So this is a real gamble, and I know that Kellyanne Conway is in favor of these briefings, but I have to think there have to be a lot of people who are on the side of Mark Meadows and saying, "Is this really a good idea, Mr. President? Do you really want to do this? Because it didn't work out well for you last time."
And because even in his answers to Chris Wallace, he kept getting stuck in his version of reality, which is in contradiction to all the medical advice. One more note here about Dr. Fauci. Eugene, I think you're a Nats fan, because guess who's going to be throwing out the first pitch for the Nationals against the Yankees Thursday night? He's not only is a Nats fan, but this is a guy who was a high school star athlete at 5'7" or something, improbably, Regis High School in Manhattan. He led his team to a big championship against Fordham Prep. So apparently he was a star guard in basketball. Yeah. So we look forward to watching him throw out the first pitch.
Apparently, he was a really good 5'7" guard, which unfortunately doesn't get you very far in the basketball world. But he was good. He's a big Nats fan, and I think that'll be a great moment for him in the middle of this pandemic. The baseball season like no other. That he gets to start it off here in Washington is really, I think that's an honor for him, and I think he'll see it as an honor.
Indeed. Probably bigger ratings, I would suspect, the world champion Nats against the Yankees, even in that healthcare task force that might happen at 5 o'clock without him. Thanks so much to all of you for being with us. There's a lot happening on the Hill and at the White House. We appreciate the time you've taken to be with us today. And there's a big push by outside experts now for $75 billion to bolster more testing and tracing. Why that effort is so important up next. Plus, safety takes center field, how to get kids back in the game, a debate that is dividing parents, coaches, and local officials. You're watching Andrea Mitchell Reports on MSNBC.
Some small businesses don't have storefronts. Their office is a truck.
Seeing the results of those tests in the U.S.
I don't want to watch no more of this unless they come up with some new findings. I'm tired of listening to a bunch of people that claims to be experts that don't know their ass from a hole in the ground. They'll put us where we are right now towards a very, very harsh condition. Started out, we wasn't supposed to wear a mask unless we was sick. Started out, it was supposed to have died out after it got hot.
Committed to naming a black.
Started out, it was just going to go away. Started out, we got it all under control. Now they finally brought in enough masks to where now they can make it mandated to where people have to wear a mask. And that's what they should have done on the front end, but there wasn't enough masks to mandate it on the front end, so now they're doing it on the back end. I've never in my entire life seen a bunch of people so confused and so mixed up, but yet now claims to be experts. If these are the experts, I don't want them telling me nothing else about this pandemic, about this coronavirus. If these are the experts that we're relying upon pertaining to our safety and our well-being, I hate to say it, folks, but we're probably doomed. Unless they can find somebody else in there that can speak volumes about the truth and tell people which way to go. I've never in my life seen so much confusion. Bunch of freaking beginners.
Woman as your vice presidential running mate.
I am not committed to naming any but the people I've named, and among them there are 4 black women. So that decision is underway right now. And by the way, black women have supported me my entire career. And so they're the ones, as that old saying goes, that brought me to the dance. I have been loyal, they have been loyal to me. And so it is important that my administration...
Somebody brought him to the dance. Can you imagine that? I hate to say it, folks, but if we're having to choose between damned if you do and damned if you don't, we're in bad trouble. The lesser of the two evils, we're doomed. I'm going to take you to the dance. That'd be like taking me to the dance. Mr. Biden, I'm 300 plus pounds. You think anybody wants to dance with me on the dance floor? Let's go to something. Let's go to something else.
For Old Dominion Freight Lines.
You gotta laugh at
We had
this.
just been told before that it was daily, and so it does.
You gotta laugh at this idiotic behavior. Because if I didn't laugh, I'd sit down and cry and cry and cry, and I'd never stop crying.
Is known to have
I would never stop crying because it's that disgraceful.
So clearly there have been a few occasions where they feel the president needs to get tested multiple times, Brianna. She also seems to think
that the Democrats seem to be dug in and stuck on making sure that nothing gets done, even when something needs to be done for not only our seniors and lower income citizens. You know, they know that it has a negative impact on the quality of life there. But I tell you, it is just like making sure that our streets are safe and our neighborhoods are safe.
Which is a joke.
They rather sacrifice the citizens. It appears that they rather sacrifice the well-being of citizens and voters. And I think they do it at their own danger.
I'll ask you one more about this, and I think it'll come
They
down to this in
probably
some ways.
do.
The negotiations over unemployment benefits. We've had these enhanced unemployment benefits where people out of work get an extra $600 a week. I know I've talked to a lot of Republicans who say, you know what, this is the wrong incentive. We're having trouble getting people to come back to work. We don't want to disincentivize work. We get that. Again, to bring it back to politics, because it's obviously part of it, it's a tough spot in some ways for Republicans because you don't want to look like you're coming down hard on unemployed people who have become reliant on that. So how do you balance that? Do you hold firm and say this doesn't make sense economically, or is there some sort of a negotiation, maybe if you get one of the other things you were talking about, that can be worked out?
It's about a mix of things, and it is going to get down to trade-offs. And I actually think that you can target those folks who are now unemployed and can't get back to work. But in balancing it all out, you have to make sure that you incentivize and reward work and employing people. And that's one of the things you can do with the payroll tax holiday. But I want to underscore, I'm concerned about making sure that we don't strap families and workers with extraordinarily high healthcare burdens. And we can do that, making sure that we have price transparency built into the system. The president has done wonders with transparency from an executive order standpoint. But we need to get this worked into the legislation so it has maximum impact in the marketplace for patients. I mean, patient rights advocates across this country understand that this is the right thing to do, and they're speaking into the system, and I think that they're going to have an impact.
Understood. Good discussion on all these issues.
We'll circle here to a day in which, and there's that poll, there's quite a difference, even if you take in the margin of error there. But Aaron, today we're going to hear from the president. And campaign-wise, to change the talk about what you'll message going forward about the president and COVID-19, what needs to happen today? What does the president need to say to the United States?
The president's going to say exactly what the American people need to hear, and that's the facts about what's being done to fight the invisible enemy, the coronavirus in this country, the work that has been done on testing, on securing remdesivir, on the work being done to make sure our citizens are safe. The only thing Joe Biden knows about a pandemic are three things. One, that the Obama-Biden administration had to walk back his disastrous inflammatory comments about travel during the swine flu. Two, that under Biden's watch, they stopped testing and reporting cases because his administration even said, well, we already know it's an epidemic, so why waste the resources on it? And that he left the national stockpile empty. We don't have to guess what a reaction would actually look like under a Joe Biden administration to a pandemic. We've seen it, and it's an absolute dereliction of duty.
Why are there no health officials like the task force superstars that the president brought forth months and months ago?
Because they don't know what's going on neither. The pandemic keeps changing. It's mutating. It's evolving, along with people's attitudes and along with the secondary events that follow after the coronavirus that had nobody never thought about, as far as loss of jobs and income, and can't nobody pay for their bills, and people rioting and going freaking absolutely crazy. The carnage that this coronavirus is going to leave behind and has left behind is going to go beyond anything imaginable or unimaginable that anybody has ever thought of, that's going to affect things from A to Z across the board, not just here in America, but throughout the planet. It's horrifying in how unprepared that not only our politicians was pertaining to all this, but it's horrifying in seeing how that our medical professionals was unprepared to deal with this. And it's horrifying in knowing that we have a president that keeps politicizing it and patricizing it towards thinking that he's just hoping that it's just going to go away, speaking out loud, well, it's just going to evaporate. Whenever the summer months gets here, it's just going to dissipate and go away. It's going to vanish. It's going to be as if that it never occurred, etc., etc. And in the meantime, we see numbers that keep climbing and going in the opposite direction. And now this guy's going to fix and go into the White House and start having these coronavirus health meetings. That's, as far as I'm concerned, he's just going to make an idiot out of himself. He's already made an idiot out of himself pertaining to these issues. Dr. Trump is costing a lot of people their lives. And not only is Dr. Trump doing that, but Dr. So-and-so and Dr. So-and-so and specialist so-and-so and scientist so-and-so and all these other people that basically don't know their ass from a hole in the ground whenever it comes to dealing with these uncertainties. It's so sad in what we're dealing with right now. It's almost like, it ain't almost like, it is like what the Bible talks about, the blind leading the blind, and they all leading off into the ditch. Don't nobody know what to do. We're in uncharted territory. You got countries right now that are shutting down. Australia, India, Brazil. Brazil ain't shutting down, but people are still getting sick and dying by the groves. This is a unknown to humanity. And until the scientists and the doctors and the politicians can get their minds wrapped around this, towards understanding the characteristics of this disease, we are basically walking into the dark. We are stumbling over ourselves right now. We're walking in the dark. We don't know where we're heading or where we're going.
Confirmed for today's press briefing, you talk about how you want the president to say what he will do and what he's done. That's fine, but the doctors are very different from the president. The last time we saw him was not a good moment. He was calling for ingesting somehow disinfectant to kill coronavirus. So is he
exactly, or sticking lights up into your body some way or another of killing the disease? In the meantime, you got prisons, people that's deliberately trying to get the coronavirus. In the meantime, you got coronavirus parties where people think that this is a joke. In the meantime, you got mayors and governors that has degraded the science community because they claim that it's a hoax, and now it's bombarded their whole community or their whole state. It's upside down. We're dealing with anarchy, chaos. And now we got a president that's going to get on TV every day and preach to us. He's going to tell us how the cow's going to eat the cabbage, what we're doing wrong and what we're not doing wrong pertaining to the coronavirus. Come on. This is just giving him a pedestal. This is just giving him a platform so that he can get in there and brag about himself and tell all these different tattletales about how that we're going to go on this goose chase, this wild goose chase of his, and we're all going to wind up going around and around in circles, and ultimately, whenever it's all said and done with, we ain't gone nowhere. We just spending a lot of time and a lot of effort and lost a lot of good quality time and people in regards to all this. It's a circus. That's what it is. It's a circus. And it's sad. It's sad in the 21st century, in the year 2020, we have not adapted to these type of elements no better today than what they dealt with them 100 years ago pertaining to the Spanish flu. It's sad. It is so sad that the medical industry has been this far behind. Really sad. You know, one of the reasons why I think that the sexual transmitted diseases has been so out of control is because so many of your doctors and nurses and politicians and yes, clergymen in churches and stuff have the same disease. And rather than preach cleanliness and preach being pure and clean to each other, because they themselves are involved in these type of activities, they feel guilty about telling people the right way to go other than using a condom or a rubber. You know, using a condom or a rubber only covers the cosmetic parts of it. It don't cover the guilt. It don't cover the shame. It don't cover the internal facts of possibly getting diseases from one another and sharing these transmitted diseases one from another. The preachers themselves don't get in behind the pulpit and preach holiness, righteousness, and cleanness the way that they should, and because of it we have a sick society. And we was already sick before the coronavirus ever hit. We wasn't just acknowledging our sicknesses, regardless of what type of sicknesses that we had. Now, since the coronavirus has hit, now it's become a number one topic towards people talking about various illnesses and sicknesses. Up until this time, oh my God, if you even so much as even mentioned that I had a cold last week, I'm going to come at you with a lawsuit because of the HIPAA law. Well, they can't tell my name and put my name on TV and tell who I am and what kind of bad problems that I'm having. I got confidentiality, privacy laws to protect me. Right? And everybody was frightened to death towards mentioning anybody ever having a cold. Even so much as a cold. Well, now you've all got the disease. You're all sick in some form or fashion. Now we're all in the boat together.
back today. His press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany, asked a couple of hours ago, will the task force be there? And no confirmation. I appreciate the marketing tool to keep us in suspense, but what do you say about that?
Well, I would say a couple of things on that. One, the president is in constant communication with the absolute top medical officials in this country, the CDC and others, about what's going on. And as Kayleigh said, you never want to get ahead of the president when it comes to these briefings. We'll see what happens today, but I can tell you the president's ability to stand in front of the American people and have an honest conversation without the media bias or filter over top as he lays out...
Politicizing it. Turning it into a freak show. And it's not to be turned into a freak show. Not when you have people that's dying. It's lethal. And those that ain't dying, it's causing blood clots. It's doing things to their body that even after they get over it, they're still not over it. They don't talk about that very much on TV, but they're still not over it. Some of them can't breathe properly. Some of them have all kinds of aches and pains that they didn't have before. Some of them don't have their strength. They can't regain their strength back. Most of them have scar tissue in their lungs after getting this disease. It leaves severe scar tissue that's going to lead into other future asthma or breathing consequences on down the road. They don't talk about all that stuff. It's serious. And no matter if you get it and you get over it, you still haven't fully gotten over it. Yeah, you may build up some immunes pertaining to your antibodies, pertaining to it not actually killing you. But the fact of the matter is, it's still going to leave you wounded. It's going to leave you wounded. You're going to be wounded in some sort of way. The older that you are, the more likely that you are to feel the effects of it. Because like I said, it can cause cardio arrest, it can cause blood clots, it can cause aneurysms in your brain. I mean, they're finding out that this freaking disease, whenever it hits somebody, it just attacks almost like every organ in their body. The way that it infiltrates into their body is through the lungs. And that's the first thing that takes on the damage. They have figured out how to set up a firewall or try to initiate some sort of combat towards trying to prevent it from actually killing as many people as what it was there on the front end up in New York. But still, it's leaving people wounded. Whenever you get this coronavirus, COVID-19, even though you may recuperate from it, you have never truly recuperated from it, because it's going to leave everlasting scars in various places in your body. It's that troublesome. It's that horrendous. It's that lethal. They don't talk about that a lot.
The facts about what's being done, that'll be backed by science. That'll be in consultation with top medical officials. So the White House has said, one way or another, you got to wait for the briefing today to see who will be there.
Yeah, again, I get the marketing part of it. I think the American people just want some answers right now, like, how will you open schools if we don't get this under control?
Right.
Aaron, thank you for joining me. Great to have you on the program.
How are we going to go on with our everyday lives? How are we going to be able to pay for our rent and our utilities and pay for our mortgages and our insurance and our car payments? How are we going to maintain as a society whenever this thing is wreaking in every area of our lives, and now it's causing major upsets pertaining to rioting and protesting all over this country? How is it? How are we going to go on with our lives? That's what the people are looking for. They're looking for some real answers. They don't want to be led down this wild goose chase.
Thanks, Harris.
Be involved, or could this be handled more effectively on the local level?
Well, obviously, the local level can effectively handle this. They're choosing not to, and that is why the federal government is stepping in. And to the point that you just made, this narrative of like the secret police disappearing people. If this is a secret police, they are horrible at keeping a secret because it's on video. They're out there. Customs and Border Patrol, the U.S. Marshals, they're out there saying that they're a part of this. And the people that are so-called disappeared, they're doing interviews with the media. And so it is a bizarre, that's why I call it gaslighting. It's just bizarre because we're seeing the images. We know exactly what's going on, and yet we're still being told by some folks in the media, particularly the Oregonian and some of the alternative newspapers in Portland and Seattle, pretending that it's not actually happening. The reason why you've got these unmarked cars going in and making these discreet arrests is because, again, as you'll see on video, if an officer takes their time making an arrest surrounded by a whole bunch of protesters, they get assaulted. There's something called de-arresting where a lot of the protesters are trying to keep themselves closely packed together. So if an officer goes in and tries to make an arrest, they pull that person back into the crowd while simultaneously attacking the arresting officer.
Exactly.
We can't allow that to happen. You have to have some arrests when we're talking about the lawlessness. No one is saying you can't go ahead and protest peacefully. Literally no one is saying that.
Right.
What we're saying is you can't destroy property, you can't burn down buildings.
Right.
What happened in Seattle, someone tried to set a Starbucks attached to an apartment complex on fire. That's going to lead to deaths. You had 12 officers injured, 2 of them in Seattle having to go to the hospital. The council here and the mayor's office have said absolutely nothing. And so it is now on the federal government to come in and say, look, we got to keep law and order if you're not
out of control.
All right, Jason, thank you. We'll stay on top of
It's
this.
out of
Jason
control.
Rentz with us from Seattle as we cover the Pacific Northwest for you. Coming back to the market for a moment, the Dow up just a shade under 300 points today, but the focus really has been on the NASDAQ here for weeks, and it's hovering around those record highs, finally pulling back a little bit from, some parabolic run higher. We're 10.7 though, still close to 11,000 on the NASDAQ. When we come back, the run up in some of these stocks, Tesla and Amazon and others, and whether it's overdone or justified. We'll be right back on
my life perfectly because I am a mom, I'm a wife, and I was able to complete those short courses.
I don't want to get ahead of Vice President Biden's announcement, but I can tell you as a working mom, we as a nation desperately need childcare. I, for example, have been told that my daughter's public school is saying you can either bring your daughter to school 2 days a week or 4 days at home, 5 hours of online instruction a day. How does a parent go back to work if we don't make sure that we provide for some kind of childcare? This is one of the things that's hobbling our economy when we compare it to other developed nations. And
one of many things that's hobbling our economy. One of many things.
That the Biden plan really reflects,
for intervening in difficult customer conversations. So that's a manager sort of acting like a de facto store security. But to my knowledge, no new security force has.
Look at this. Look at this. I don't know if you can see this or not, but it's horrifying to think that just in the past 6 months, since January, whenever they discovered that this thing was being unleashed, this is our Christmas present, America. We've had 141,158 deaths. Could you imagine a town or a city that has 140 to 150,000 people in it all of a sudden just disappearing? Disappearing as if it never existed. Well, that's what's happening here. We're losing more people to this coronavirus than a lot of our wars. This is sad. This is startling. This is a wake-up call for not only the American people, but the world. Like I said, whenever they first started, I don't know where this is coming from. Walmart workers terrified of enforcing masks in stores. Why would they be terrified of masks in stores? They should be terrified if the people are not wearing the masks in stores. This is a prevention deal, kind of like putting on a condom or a rubber before you have sex, pertaining to putting on these masks so that you won't be distributing these germs one to another, mouth to mouth, person to person. Why are Walmart workers terrified of enforcing masks in stores? They shouldn't be, unless they're afraid that the people are going to rebel, and some of them probably will, towards embarking upon the violence if you try to make them wear a mask. There are certain people out there that you can't mandate nothing towards. They don't follow the speed limit signs. They don't care about stopping and following the right proper procedures in their driving accountabilities. And the rest of their lives is basically the same way. It's a free-for-all in a lot of people's lives out there because they think that they're above and beyond the law. But yet now they want to pick on people like Juby, the individual that's talking to you right now, that's actually trying to help humanity. Not hurt humanity, but help them. So here we are, going through what we're going through on the latter part of July. We like just a little more than 10 days of getting through the month of July. What are we, less than 100 days away from Christmas or something like that? I mean, July is slipping by, folks. The year of 2020 is halfway gone. Time is moving on. But we're still not coming up with solutions to our problems.
Has been hired in this capacity.
Okay. Well, Kelly, thank you for the piece. You really pulled the curtain back on what folks are dealing with at these major retailers. We thank you for sharing it with us.
Thanks so much.
The governor of Louisiana begins a 3-day fast due to the outbreak. Hear his reasons, plus how Disney World is changing its rules and cracking down on masks inside the park. And Illinois Senator Tammy Duckworth joins me next on the president's threat to send federal agents to Chicago, something that the mayor says she will not allow to happen.
Good luck to all of us. Good luck to each and every one of us. It's turned into a madhouse. And if we don't watch, the carnal damage that's going to be created from the COVID-19 is going to be just as bad, if not worse, than the disease itself. Consequences, repercussions. We are at a state right now of dire emergency, and that should have been the image that should have went out to society in January, February, and March, during the time that our representatives in Washington, D.C. was playing games with Donald Trump and the Ukrainian people over the impeachment trials. May God have mercy on us all. Good luck to us all, and shalom. Thanks for listening.